Hello guys and girls, and welcome to class today. As you can tell, we are doing things a little bit different than how we normally do them. Instead of me standing up at the front of the room and you guys taking notes that way today, we are going to be taking all of our notes via video. And the reason that we're doing it this way is because I know that note-taking can be kind of a frustrating process. You have some people who write really fast, you have some people that write really slow, and so the people who are fast writers feel like they're bored because they're always waiting for other people to catch up, and then the people who don't write quite as fast are frustrated because they feel like they're constantly behind and they're trying to get everything written down. So here's our solution. We are doing a video lesson today. We will do this quite a bit throughout the year, but this is going to be our first time doing it, so I want to take just a really quick second and talk about our expectations. These are the things that I am expecting from you. This is what I would like you to do as we're doing this lesson today to make sure that you are on track and getting the information that you need. Number one, please make sure that you are not disrupting the learning of other people in the room. I don't want you distracting other people. Everybody's doing their own thing today, so your eyes should be on your computer screen. You shouldn't be talking to people or looking at other people. Focus on what you're doing. Number two, stay engaged with the video. You do need to make sure that you are listening and following along. These are really important notes, so you want to make sure that you get everything written down. Number three, this is my favorite thing about using video lessons. You can pause and you can rewind the video at any time. So if you're taking notes and you missed something or you need to hear it again, you can always pause the video and go back and rewatch things if you need to. Number four, please be patient. There are lots of people trying to watch this video at the same time, and sometimes when that happens, the videos tend to pause or glitch. So if that does happen, just pause your video, give it a few seconds to buffer, and then hit play and you should be good to go. Number five, you guys are mostly going to be working on your own today, but if you need anything, you have to raise your hand and let me know. That's going to be your signal to me that you need some extra help. So you should have a note-taking sheet in front of you. You need to have that front and center on your desk, and you also need to have your pencil ready, and we are going to get started. What is on-demand writing? On your note-taking sheet up at the top, right underneath where it says on-demand guided notes, you have some space where you can write down some things. And so I want you to think back. I know it may seem like you don't know anything about on-demand writing, but I know for a fact that you guys did on-demand writing when you were in 5th grade. So I want you to think back and try to remember what you know about on-demand writing. It could be anything from how many paragraphs you're supposed to write, what kind of questions you have to answer, how long your paragraph should be, how it's scored. Anything that you already know about on-demand writing, I want you to go ahead and pause the video right now, pause the video, and write that down at the top of your paper. If you hadn't already figured it out, we are talking about on-demand writing today. That is what our entire next unit is going to be about. So we're going to be spending a week or two kind of refreshing your memory and talking about what on-demand writing is. And then at the end of the unit, you guys will be doing an on-demand writing piece. But the first thing that you need to know about on-demand writing is that on-demand writing is fun and magical. Okay, so I know that on-demand writing is usually not my students' favorite thing, but my goal throughout this whole process is to try to make it as easy as I possibly can for you, and it is really important that you pay attention and give it your best effort, because I promise you will be doing on-demand writing up until the time you graduate from high school. So I know you do it in 7th grade, 8th grade, and then even when you move on to the high school, on-demand writing is going to follow you there. So we are going to make lemonade out of lemons, and we're going to try to make this the best on-demand year that you have ever had. So let's answer that question. What is on-demand writing? You do have some things to fill in on your notes here, so make sure you get those written down. On-demand is when you are given a prompt, and a prompt just means a writing question. So it asks you to write something, and you have a limited amount of time to answer it. And we'll talk about how much time you have for on-demand writing in just a second, but it is important that you know that during that limited amount of time you have, there are 4 steps that you have to follow. You do need to fill these in on your notes as well. And remember, if at any point you need to pause the video so you can get these notes written down, feel free to do so. So, in your limited amount of time, you have to follow all of the steps of the writing process. And you guys have heard these things before. This is nothing new. First, you have to do your pre-writing. And before we get done today, we're going to be talking about a pre-writing strategy that's really quick and really easy. Then you have to write a rough draft. So you have to take all those ideas in your head and you've got to get them down on paper. Then you have to revise and you have to edit your rough draft. So what that means is you're going to read back through it. You're going to make sure you didn't have any spelling mistakes. You're going to make sure everything makes sense. You're going to make sure you have all of your punctuation where it's supposed to be. And then your rough draft is going to turn into your final draft. So one thing that's kind of different about on-demand writing is you don't write 2 separate pieces. You don't write a rough draft and then a separate final draft because you don't have time. So what you have to do is make changes to your rough draft and turn it into your final draft. There are 2 types of questions that you have to answer with on-demand writing. On your notes, you do not have to write everything that's on the screen. What I would like you to write down is passage-based dash 90 minutes. I'm going to say that again. Passage-based dash 90 minutes. That's going to be your first bullet point. This is on the bottom of the first page of your notes. And then I also want you to write standalone dash 40 minutes. Standalone dash 40 minutes. So, on K-Prep at the end of the year, if you are asked to do an on-demand question, the first type you'll have is called passage-based. And what that means is it is going to give you a text or something that you have to read, and then you have to write about what you read. If you get a passage-based on-demand, you have 90 minutes to do all of those things that we just talked about. So you'll have to read the passage, you'll have to do your pre-writing, your rough draft, your edit, and then turn it into your final draft. The second type of on-demand writing is called standalone. Standalone means you do not have anything extra that you have to read. It's only going to give you a prompt, and you'll have 40 minutes. So you'll have 40 minutes to read the prompt or the question, and then do your pre-writing, edit, and turn it into your final draft. There are 3 different reasons that you might have to write. The first is write to inform. On your notes, you do not have to write anything after the dash. So you are going to write to inform, period. This is going to be at the top on the back of the first page. You might also have to write to persuade or argue, and then write to entertain or to narrate. So let's talk about what each one of these means. First, you might have to write to inform. And if you're writing to inform, you are telling what you know about a topic. So for example, it might say something like, tell how to play your favorite sport. So you would have to inform your audience or teach them about how to play your favorite sport. Write to persuade or argue. This is one that 6th graders are really good at because you guys love to argue and you're really good at it.
Listen to me. Like I do this all the time. And if I go out at the house with the door, Matthew has his toys, and then Matthew has all his toys.
Okay, but I have to yell at you guys.
Okay, Linda, listen.
If it asks you to persuade or argue, that just means that you're giving your opinion on a topic. So for example, it might say, tell your opinion on school uniforms. And you'll have to tell if you think they're a good idea or if you think they're a bad idea. And then the last one is to write, to entertain, or to narrate. That just means that you'll have to tell a story. It could be a true story, or it might even be a made-up story. It might say something like, tell about a time when you had to overcome a challenge in your life. And so then you would have to tell that story and write about it in your on-demand. On-demand writing is scored with 1, 2, 3, or 4 points. And those break down to novice, apprentice, proficient, or distinguished. So a novice would be like 1 point, apprentice would be 2 points, proficient would be 3 points, and then distinguished would be 4 points. On the next few slides, you do need to write down what it says after the dash. So again, remember, if at any point you need to pause the video so that you can get these notes written down, feel free to do so. So you get graded in 4 areas. The first area is your audience and your purpose. That just means you know why you are writing and who you are writing to. So, for example, let's say that it says something like, write a letter to your school principal about your opinion on school uniforms. That means you better be writing to Mr. Parker about school uniforms. You are not writing to President Trump about school uniforms because the prompt told you to write to your school principal. Next is your idea development. That means that you use good supporting details and you explain your thoughts. So this is where we kind of get into how long an on-demand piece should be, and we'll talk about that more when we actually start writing. But on-demands are usually going to be about 5 or 6 paragraphs, and they need to be complete paragraphs. So we're going to be looking for anywhere from 5 to 8 sentences per paragraph, because that shows that you have added a lot of detail and you've explained everything, and that's how you get those points for your idea development. Next thing you are graded on is your organization. So you need to make sure that your on-demand has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's got to have an introduction and it's got to have a conclusion. And also that you write in the correct format. So if it tells you to write a letter, you got to write a letter. If it tells you to write an essay, you have to write an essay. And then the last thing that you're graded on is your grammar and usage. That's things like your word choice, your grammar, your spelling, your punctuation, and making sure that you have all of those things the way that they should be. Remember, on the previous 2 slides, this one and the one we just looked at, you are writing down everything after the dash. So you may need to go ahead and pause the video here so that you can get these notes written down. Alright, now that we have talked about what on-demand writing is, and we've talked about how it's scored, the next thing that we're going to talk about is how do I actually write an on-demand. Here at the middle school, we use an acronym called PASS.
Yeah!
And in your notes, you are going to be writing down what each letter of PASS stands for.
Yeah!
I will tell you that you're not going to have to write down everything on the next few slides, so listen very carefully so that you don't do more work than you have to. The first letter of PASS stands for purpose, and that is why are you writing? Anytime you're given an on-demand, you're going to have one of 3 purposes. You are either going to be writing to inform, to entertain or to narrate, or to persuade or argue. To inform just means that you're telling what you already know about a topic. The next reason you might have to write is to entertain or to narrate. That just means that you are telling a story, and your story could be a true story or it could be a made-up story. And then the last reason that you might have to write an on-demand is to persuade or to argue. So if you're persuading or arguing, that just means that you're telling your viewpoint on a specific topic. On your note-taking sheet, next to the P, all I want you to write down is this very first bullet point. You are going to write down purpose, why are you writing? And that's it. You do not have to write down these 3 bullet points because we've already written those down. Don't forget, if you need to, you can pause the video so that you have time to get all of that written. The A in PASS stands for audience. That means who are you writing to? So it might tell you to write to your school principal. It might tell you to write to your teacher. It might tell you to write to your city council. There are endless opportunities, endless options for who your audience might be. On your paper next to the A, you are going to copy down everything that you see on this slide. And don't forget, if you need to pause the video, you can do that now. The first S in PASS stands for situation, and that is what is taking place that is causing you to write. Now, the cool thing about on-demand prompts is they give you the situation. So all you have to do is read it and then summarize it and put it in your own words. And I will show you guys an example of that in just a second. But for now, you do need to pause the video and write down everything on this slide. The last S is strategy. That means what form will you be writing in. It might ask you to write a letter or a blog or an email or an essay, but you will have to find that in the prompt and figure out exactly what form to use. For now, you're going to pause the video, and all you have to copy on this one is the very first bullet point, strategy. What form will you be writing in? Now, if you flip your notes to the very back page, we are going to do 2 PASS practices. The first one, I'm going to kind of walk through it with you, and then the second one, I'm going to have you try it on your own. At the top of your paper, you do have a prompt, so I have it on the screen here. I'm going to read it to you, and then we're going to walk through each part of PASS. It says, every year, you and your fellow classmates go on a field trip. The students usually do not like where the school goes for the field trip, and you have the opportunity to plan a field trip for your grade level. You will be allowed to decide where you go and what you do while you're on the trip. You should write a persuasive letter to the principal of your school about planning this trip. You must persuade him that you have found the perfect location and have arranged plans for all students while on this trip. We're going to walk through this together and see if we can figure out what each letter of PASS stands for. Remember, the P is purpose, and you always have 3 options. It's either going to be to persuade or to argue, to inform, or to entertain or narrate. This one, the purpose is to persuade, and we know that because if we go back to the prompt, right here it says you should write a persuasive letter, and then it says persuade him. So on your paper next to that top P, I want you to write to persuade. To persuade. Remember, the A in PASS stands for audience. Our audience with this prompt was Mr. Parker. And we know that because if we go back here, it says write a persuasive letter to the principal of your school. And we know obviously our principal is Mr. Parker. So on your paper next to the A, I want you to write Mr. Parker. Remember, situation is what is taking place that is causing us to write. So what's happening that's causing us to write this persuasive article letter to Mr. Parker? And what's happening is our school is going on a field trip, but usually students don't like where they go. And this year you have the chance to plan the trip yourself. I know that because if I go back to the prompt, my writing situation is written up here. All I did was I took this, I made it shorter, and I put it in my own words. So on your paper, next to that first S, I need you to copy what you see here on your screen. And remember, if you need to, you can pause the video. Last S is strategy. Our strategy is a persuasive letter. And I know that because if I go back to the prompt, right here it tells me I am writing a persuasive letter. So on your paper, next to the last S, I need you to write persuasive letter. All right, now that we have done a PASS together, I want you to try one on your own. I'm going to read through this prompt with you. The prompt is also on your note-taking sheet. And then after I get done reading, I want you to pause the video. Try your best to fill in the P, the A, the S, and the S. And then after you have filled them in, you can unpause the video and check your answers. So here's what we have. A school district has a new middle school. On the first day, the students realize that they are the first people to sit in the desks, use the books in the library, walk in the halls, and set the traditions for all of the students who will attend for years and years to come. One of the teachers suggests that everyone write about his or her first day in the school. The students' narratives will be compiled in a book and placed in the library for the students who attend after them to read. Here's the writing task. Think about what it would be like to be the first to attend a newly built school. Write a narrative for the book and tell about that first day. Describe what you do, see, and feel through the day. I want you to go ahead and pause the video now and try your best to fill in the pass on your paper. You may not get it 100% correct, and that is okay. This is just practice, but I do want you to try, and you can use the example that we just did to kind of help walk you through this. And then after you have at least tried to fill in each one, hit play again on the video and we'll talk about the correct answers. Okay, the purpose of this on-demand is either to entertain or if you wrote to narrate, that is also correct. We know that because if we go back here to the prompt, it tells us right here, the students' narratives. Narrate, narrative, there's our answer. The audience on this one is kind of tricky. It is future students, and we know that because if we go back to the prompt, it tells us the students' narratives will be compiled in a book and placed in the library for the students who attend after them to read. So that means that future students who come to the school are going to be able to go back and look at the narratives. Our situation should say something like, I am a student in a brand new school and I've been asked to write about my first day. Yours might not say exactly what mine says, but it should be something similar. You should have written something about how you're writing about your first day in a brand new school. And then the strategy for this one is a narrative. One last time, if we go back to the prompt, right here it tells us to write a narrative. There's our answer right in the text. Alright guys and girls, that is going to do it for our notes today. Thank you so much for following along and for filling everything in for me. There is one more step before you're done for the day. Once this video ends, you are going to hop on Google Classroom and there is a quiz for you to take. The quiz is over the notes that you just took. Remember, if you missed something, if you have something not filled in, you can go back and rewind. Now would be a great time to do that because if your notes are filled in the way they're supposed to be, this quiz is going to be very easy and you may use your notes on the quiz. Other than that, again, thank you. Let me know after class today what you guys thought about this. If you like it, if you hate it, let me know. And until then, I will talk to you later. Thanks, guys.